So my name's Eamon Johnston. I live in Rodney, Ontario. It's just about halfway between London and Chatham, just off the 401. A small cash crop and broiler chicken operation. Janelle, my wife, and I are both from the farm, but broilers is very new to us. We are a CFO new entrants from 2019. So prior to 2019, I had zero exposure or experience in the poultry industry. So I'm still not, not quite 3 years in. It'll be 3 years this October. Again, broiler chickens and small cash crop, and then my wife and I also work full-time jobs off farm as well. It started off as a way to stay in agriculture. To be honest with you, was purely economics and numbers. I love ag. I love farming. I love all aspects of it, and the cash crop side just wasn't enough. We didn't feel to take us the distance, so that's what got us looking at the CFO new entrant program. It was a way to stay involved in agriculture. I'm going to be honest, COVID has been a huge challenge for myself, for the sector, much like any other sector out there. It's created volatility in supply demand. It's created challenges with processing, logistics on the processing end, on the feed supply end, on chicks. It's just like I said, like everything else, it's really shook things up in a in a in a rough way. So that's the biggest challenge right now. And I mean that's been going on for 2 years. So like I said, I'm only 2.5 years in. I really don't know much about the industry pre-pandemic because I've spent most of my time so far in the pandemic side of the industry. So I tell you, I am looking forward to seeing what it looks like once we're able to get through where we're at now. Another challenge that I know is a challenge for myself and our little operation. Others that I've talked to find the same, that the capital investment to get into the poultry industry is high. And I mentioned, my wife and I both work full time off farm. Uh, that's out of necessity, really, because it's not I don't know that there's a get rich quick scheme when it comes to agriculture. It's a slow progression, absolutely worth the work and the time that goes into it, but the capital, the upfront capital investment it's tough. It's tough. It's a big bite to take. And I guess then with that also comes in time commitment for myself. And I'm not the only one in the poultry industry that has to work multiple jobs to keep things going. Most new entrants that I've talked to have other sources of income as well. So time, work-life balance, making sure things get done, making sure that you're keeping up on new technologies and all of the regulatory requirements that you need to meet for animal health and welfare, biosecurity, etc. So it takes a time commitment. So I would say that between COVID, capital investments, and time, those are probably some of the biggest challenges that I'm facing. Biggest thing that makes me curious is how to drive for sustainable agriculture. That's important to me. It's very important to me. It's important to my wife, to my family, and a lot of the other young farmers that I talk to. We really do want to keep pushing for that sustainable agriculture model, whatever it looks like. So that's really what drives my curiosity, is how can we make things better? How do we lessen our environmental footprint with what we're doing? The things like upcycling nutrients with manure and supplementing in place of chemical fertilizers for cash crops, protecting waterways, renewable energy sources. All of these things are what keeps me curious and really drives most of most of the innovation that I've been exposed or experienced thus far. Data capture and recording technology that you can get with barn systems controls now is excellent, and I believe is crucial if we're going to make steps forward in the right direction. You got to be able to measure what you're doing, identify if there's areas for improvement, and then you make a change. You want to be able to measure if your change had an impact or not. So digital technology innovations, and I mean that's always changing and growing, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with some of the changes as well. Uh, Personally, for myself, being on a small farm, one of the uh, I'm going to call it an innovation for our farm. One item, we're not on municipal water, so we're using wells, and with that comes water quality. Poultry is sensitive to the quality of the water, much like anybody else. I mean, I don't like drinking water that isn't good for me or doesn't taste good or anything like that. So I've done quite a bit of work in our barn to make sure that I'm supplying as ideal water quality for the flock as possible. Uh, Monitoring pH levels, making sure that there's adequate supply throughout the stages of growth, getting even something as simple as having it regularly tested. And when I built the barn, I built a lot of options into it so that I could make adjustments on the go and be able to measure those adjustments to make sure that I'm getting within the parameters that I want, and I can see that whether or not there's a positive effect on the flock as well. Is start with identifying a real-time issue. Talk to producers or industry stakeholders and find out what the real pinch points are for them, to really hone in on what sort of technologies or research projects are going to have the most impact. Don't be afraid to be curious, and don't be afraid of things that you don't know. I like to believe that we're all working towards the same thing. So getting out there and talking to the folks that may one day be implementing the technology that you're researching. I mean, that's where it needs to start. Again, talk, conversations, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid of not knowing something. Some of the best ideas came as a result of a problem that likely the person didn't know that they had. I mentioned about collecting data and analyzing data, and I mean that's what researching is, right? It's collecting information and trying to figure out if you've got the result you were looking for, and if not, well, what do you change to get that result? So, communicating. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. As long as you're making incremental progress, you're still making progress. So I guess don't be afraid, stay curious, and talk to the people that are out there in the industry working directly with the animals.